Now, the 3 Martini Lunch with Greg Corombos and Jim Geraghty.
And welcome, everyone, to the Wednesday edition of the 3 Martini Lunch, along with Jim Geraghty of National Review. I'm Greg Corombos of Radio America. We have good, bad, and crazy martinis for conservatives as usual. Today we're sponsored by ExpressVPN. Protect your online activity and protect it today. Find out how and get 3 months free in the process at expressvpn.com/martini. Much more on that a little bit later in the podcast. Jim, let's start with the good martini. And I think it's safe to say that Senate Judiciary Committee Chairman Chuck Grassley is not playing around anymore. He has pretty much run out of patience for people trying to stall, delay, change the subject, not cooperate, whatever it is. We've got pretty good examples of that in a number of different ways today. Not just Grassley himself, but his staff. And I'm sure most of these letters were actually written by the staff because that's their job. First of all, yesterday, Michael Avenatti, not very happy at all that the FBI has not investigated the claim from Julie Swetnick that we talked about yesterday. And if you heard our podcast yesterday, you probably know why the FBI is not bothering to investigate the Julie Swetnick allegation. But Michael Avenatti's not very happy that the FBI is not taking him seriously. So he emailed the chief counsel for the Senate Judiciary Committee, Mike Davis, and said, "Stop playing games. If you are the chief counsel, then you need to do your job. Please respond to our requests." And Davis emails him back, "We have already reviewed your client's allegations. We focus on credible allegations. Please stop emailing me." End of message. Then, of course, you've got Dr. Ford's attorneys. They're not happy that she hasn't been interviewed by the FBI yet. A lot of people speculating that they consider her testimony under oath last week to be her formal statement. Who knows if they'll actually end up doing an interview here in the next day or so or what have you. But in response to their frustration, Grassley sending out an email saying, look, I'm still waiting for all this evidence you supposedly have. First, I renew my request for the notes from therapy sessions in which Dr. Ford discussed the alleged assault by Judge Kavanaugh. The Washington Post reported that some notes were provided to the Post, and Dr. Ford's testimony indicated that these notes were highly relevant to her allegations. These notes have been repeatedly cited as corroboration. They say doctor-client privilege is not justified here based on the fact that this material has been presented as a key component supporting the allegations. He also fired off a letter to Chris Coons, who forwarded an allegation that's not even an allegation from a guy who said that the fraternity that Kavanaugh belonged to as an undergrad hosted a party at a house it owned after Kavanaugh graduated with either a prostitute or a stripper. Has no idea whether Kavanaugh was there. It's happened sometime in the 87-88 school year, and Grassley fired back to Coons saying, "What are you doing? There's not even an allegation here." So, Jim, Chuck Grassley's been patient in a lot of ways over the past couple of weeks, but it's running pretty low.
Yeah, I think he is completely well within his rights. Look, if I were the FBI investigator, I would reach out to the Ford team and say, does she have anything to add beyond what was said in 3 hours of testimony? I suppose it's possible. If she does, that really raises the question of why didn't she say so during the 3 hours of testimony? I'm having a hard time imagining what detail was left out. She was given, pretty much unlimited time for her opening statement. What's left to be said? Again, she might have, I suppose it's possible she remembered something. I remember the address now. I remember the date now or something. There's this, why isn't the FBI talking to this woman? Well, first of all, you probably want to get everybody else with their answers and their recollections and their explanations on the record, and then go to her and see what matches and what doesn't. But again, 3 hours of testimony, I'd love to know what's left that her legal team believes that needs to be put into the record here. I think the request for the notes is completely honest. As many people point out, you can't use the notes as both a sword and a shield. You cannot say, this is what the notes say, but I'm not going to show them to you. The other thing which kind of comes out of this, and it's kind of stirred some activity yesterday, right around the time we were getting ready to tape, Greg, that I'm a little bit surprised that so far we have not heard the name of the therapist that treated the Fords, where she first described this assault. Yesterday afternoon, or I guess yesterday morning, there was a lot of hubbub and murmurs about a therapist who sold the house to the Fords. And as a result, the address of the practice and the home address of the Fords are the same place. And a lot of people said, aha, this must be the marital therapist. The therapist does do marriage therapy, but I kind of went back and did some digging and research. To the best that I can determine, the therapist moved to another state about 10 hours away by car sometime no later than 2010, may have even been earlier than that. Ms. Ford said that she first discussed this in therapy in 2012. Unless you believe that the couple was going to another state to do marital therapy, I don't think this is the same therapist, and I think we'd be careful about not jumping to conclusions. Aha, we have the therapist. Having said that, I kind of would like to know who this therapist is. And it's worth noting that the therapist, I believe due to various privacy laws, both in the state of California and in the federal code, a therapist really can't discuss what they're doing in therapy with you absent some very good reason, i.e., I'm afraid my patient is a threat to themselves or a threat to someone else or something like that. Obviously, nothing like that has been alluded to in this discussion. So the therapist can't come forward and say, yes, I am the Ford's therapist. I can be a corroborating witness or something like that. But it does seem very interesting that Ford was apparently willing to show either the therapist's notes or a version of the therapist's notes or a summary of the therapist's notes to the Washington Post reporter, but is not willing to provide that to the Senate Judiciary Committee. And if you hold up to the rule that nobody withholds support evidence that supports their side, I think it's safe to conclude that what is in those notes would complicate things, not affirm the series of allegations by Ms. Ford. So we'll see. But again, you can't say that everyone on the committee has to consider these notes as evidence and then refuse to turn them in as evidence.
Good point. We'll see what actually happens with that. A lot of frustrations going on with people not providing what they claim is the critical evidence here. So there's other frustrations you can avoid, though. And with all the recent news about online security breaches, it's hard not to worry about where your data goes. Making an online purchase or simply accessing your email could put your private information at risk. The fact is, you are being tracked online by social media sites, marketing companies, and your mobile or internet provider. Not only can they record your browsing history, but they often sell it to other corporations who want to profit from your information. And that's why the good news is you can take back your privacy by using ExpressVPN.
Greg, I was thinking about, what level of security or how careful do you have to be online? And if you just watch even just your nightly news, you're going to hear a lot of stories that'll make you say, you can't be too careful. I'm sure a lot of listeners heard about 50 million Facebook passwords being compromised. Or last night I was watching on the news, they talked about people selling individual phone numbers, email passwords on the dark web. So for only a couple of bucks. I don't know about you, Greg. I'm a little mortified that my personal information would go for that cheap. But for close to like $1,000, identity thieves will sell all of your information, which sound really, really terrifying. So you really can't be too careful. And one good way to keep your data protected is to use something like ExpressVPN. ExpressVPN has easy-to-use apps that run seamlessly in the background of your computer, phone, and tablet. Turning on ExpressVPN protection just takes one click. ExpressVPN secures and anonymizes your internet browsing by encrypting your data and hiding your public IP address. Protecting yourself with ExpressVPN costs less than $7 a month, and it is rated the #1 VPN service by TechRadar and comes with a 30-day money-back guarantee. So if you ever want to use public Wi-Fi, you're at the coffee shop, you're at the restaurant, you're out at the shopping mall, any place like that, getting your car repaired. My car repair place was kind enough to offer a wireless service. Then again, how secure do I know that system is? You want to keep hackers and spies from seeing your data. ExpressVPN is the solution. And if you don't want to hand over your online history to your internet provider or to data resellers, ExpressVPN is the answer for you.
Right now, 3 Martini Lunch listeners have a great opportunity. You can protect your online activity today and find out how you can get 3 months free. Just go to expressvpn.com/martini. That's expressvpn.com/martini for 3 months free when you get a 1-year package. Visit expressvpn.com/martini to learn more. All right, Jim, it is now Wednesday, which means it's been almost a week, actually, since the Ford and Kavanaugh hearings before the Senate Judiciary Committee. Congratulations, everyone. You've almost made it a full week since then. But Mitch McConnell, as we've talked about, is demanding that there be a up or down confirmation vote this week. But to get to a confirmation that ends successfully for the president and the Senate Republicans, he's going to need at least 50 votes. And one of the reasons we have the week delay is because he didn't have that once Jeff Flake started demanding the week-long additional FBI investigation. And Jeff Flake on Friday morning announced he was going to support Kavanaugh and then, of course, backed off right around the time the committee was voting on the nomination. Since then, Flake has been on 60 Minutes. He went to some festival with Chris Coons. They've been hanging out in New Hampshire together. And now he was at an event sponsored by The Atlantic where he was talking about his conflicted feelings about the Kavanaugh nomination as the hearings were underway last Thursday. Here's part of what he said.
I was very troubled by the tone of the remarks. The initial defense that Judge Kavanaugh gave was something like I told my wife, I hope that I would sound that indignant if I felt that I was unjustly, maligned. But then it went on, and the interaction with the members was sharp and partisan, and that concerns me. And I tell myself, you give a little leeway because of what he's been through. But on the other hand, we can't have this on the court. We simply can't.
Elena Pott of The Atlantic caught up with Flake after the event and asked if this meant that he would not vote to confirm Kavanaugh, even if the FBI cleared him by week's end. She says he appeared rattled and his handlers rushed him into the stairwell. His only comment was, "I didn't say that. I wasn't referring to him." Flake did say after the FBI investigation was underway, told McKay Coppins that unless the FBI comes up with some additional information, that he's likely to support Kavanaugh. But, Jim, if Flake decides that he likes the pat on the back from Democrats more than his initial position on this issue, it means Republicans are either going to need both Susan Collins and Lisa Murkowski, or one of them plus Joe Manchin. So the idea that even though the facts of the case seem to be heading in Kavanaugh's direction this week doesn't necessarily mean he's got this in the bag.
Greg, there's nothing I would like more than for the FBI to come back with its completed investigation and say, we found no evidence to corroborate these claims. It is he said, she said. All the witnesses say no. We can't verify anything in her story. This is what we found. And for for Flake to say, aha, okay, I feel assured by this. Now I'm comfortable voting yes. And I'd love to see Democrats say, okay, we disagree with this guy, but we very much accept that the allegations against him remain unproven, and it is unfair to have this cloud over his head. But I don't think it's going to change. He said he was so upset by the tone. Senator, the tone is not going to change. And all between the speech that he gave and the TV interview with Coons, now apparently he and Coons are doing this buddy cop tour. But I see what Flake gave up, right? I mean, he postponed the vote for a week so we could get the FBI investigation to meet the demand that all these Democrats insisting this would be illegitimate without an FBI investigation. Greg, what is Coons giving in return?
Not much.
What are any Democrats? If Democrats come out and say, aha, okay, there was a legitimate FBI investigation, we believe this has been sufficiently investigated, now we're comfortable going, wonderful, great. But I don't think you're going to see that. We already heard, surprise, surprise, Dianne Feinstein saying it's too soon. There's no way they can possibly resolve this in a week. Now, Chuck Schumer on Monday was saying that nobody was going to say this had to go more than a week. Now, it took one day for Feinstein, surprise, surprise, he went, oh, no, this is going to be rushed. You know that people are going to say it wasn't a legitimate investigation because they didn't talk to X, Y, and Z. They're going to say that it was rushed. They're going to say that it was the fix was in. This is Trump's FBI. Jeff Flake is looking for the gracious concession that he can make that will make Democrats stop hating him and get protesters stop yelling at him. That's never going to happen, Senator. The only thing you can give them that will stop them from doing this is total capitulation, which apparently he may or may not be willing to give. We have a couple of senators who want to be Republicans and want to stand up for doing the right thing as long as it's easy. And then when it gets hard, all of a sudden you start wobbling, get wibbly wobbly like Jell-O. Look, I hope he holds out, but comments like this certainly do not reassure us. I don't know if Collins or Murkowski are definite yeses here, because I don't think their criteria is, well, has the issue been sufficiently investigated and has the issue been resolved? I think their issue is, what actions do we have to take so that other people will think we are nice? And there are no sequence of actions that can do that. There is nothing that will placate the Democrats. They will always move the goalposts. And, at some point you have to be willing to take a vote that people are willing to are going to yell at you over. And we will see probably by the end of the week whether Jeff Flake is one of those guys.
The Democrats are probably regretting trying to filibuster Neil Gorsuch at this point. Wouldn't you suggest that?
Boy, a filibuster sure would have come in handy. And I know everybody's like, Republicans would have blown up the filibuster either way. Well, look, let's assume they hadn't used the filibuster on Gorsuch. Let's assume the vote would be the same, right? There was no effort to filibuster him. That they didn't try. He passes with was it 54 votes? 51 Republicans, or maybe 52 Republicans and 3 Democrats, or something like that. And then we come around to this. Do you think? Now remember, it's not just like Mitch McConnell has a magic wand and he can just wipe away the filibuster for a Supreme Court nomination all by himself. He would need 50 Republican votes to do this. Do you think in these circumstances Flake would vote to get rid of the filibuster? Do you think in these circumstances Collins or Murkowski, or heck, even a Bob Corker type would vote for it? I don't think that's a safe guarantee. In other words, had they not used it on Gorsuch, there's an excellent chance that Democrats would still have the filibuster to use against Brett Kavanaugh. But they didn't, because they couldn't help themselves back then. So, real bummer for them, Greg.
All right, let's move on to the crazy Martini here now. And Jim, a lot of people excited on conservative Twitter last night about a statement under oath from a former boyfriend of Dr. Christine Ford. Fox News has the story here. The former boyfriend, whose name was redacted, also said Ford neither mentioned Kavanaugh nor mentioned she was a victim of sexual misconduct during the time they were dating from about 1992 to 1998. He said he saw Ford going to great lengths to help a woman he believed was her lifelong best friend prepare for a potential polygraph test. He added that the woman, Monica McLean, had been interviewing for jobs with the FBI and U.S. Attorney's Office. He further claimed that Ford never voiced any fear of flying and seemingly had no problem living in a very small 500-square-foot apartment with just one door, apparently contradicting her claims that she could not testify promptly in D.C. because she felt uncomfortable traveling on planes, as well as her suggestion that her memories of Kavanaugh's alleged assault prompted her to feel unsafe living in a closed space or one without a second front door. Ford, quote, never expressed a fear of closed quarters, tight spaces, or places with only one exit, the former boyfriend wrote. Also in this statement, he mentions the fact that after they stopped living together, she moved to Hawaii. She cheated on him. She kept using his credit card after he told her not to. So there could be some sour grapes here, Jim. Oh, by the way, the friend Monica McLean has said that she did not get coaching from Dr. Ford. So the Democrats are appalled that Republicans would run with an uncorroborated allegation, and the Republicans, at least some of them on the conservative side, seem only too eager to run with a story even though there's no corroboration. So what a day.
Yeah, Greg, remember a couple weeks ago when Kavanaugh had not one but 2 ex-girlfriends, I believe both named Patricia, come forward and testify about how wonderful his character is and how he never did anything untoward or crude or anything like that. And Greg, I don't know about you, but many of us observed not all of us would be able to get sterling reviews from our ex-girlfriends on the Yelp of our lives. And so when somebody comes forward, it's always a possibility that the ex-boyfriend or ex-girlfriend is going to put things in the worst possible light. In this case, it wouldn't be surprising that, Ford would have a boyfriend who would have not good things to say about her. The comment about her knowing how to, telling someone how to handle a polygraph is really interesting. But the fact that the other witness, the friend, says, no, that's not what happened, is a fairly significant complication there. The whole thing, she cheated on me, she spended my money. Look, pal, I'm sure it was ugly, but we don't. We're getting into the TMI category here, right? I don't need to know all about all of her flaws as a girlfriend. I'm only interested in what, to the extent I'm interested, I'm only interested in what you can testify to that was not accurate about what she said under oath. At this point, the only thing is the polygraph thing, and the friend does not corroborate the witness. The friend does not corroborate the accusation. Now, Greg, you noted that Democrats are appalled that anyone would believe an allegation that has no corroboration and is denied by the only other witness. Yeah, Democrats. Yeah, that's kind of what we've been saying. But the one last thing just to kind of throw into, somebody might say, oh, Jim, how about the boyfriend of Sweatnick who said all the things about her? The one, minute difference I'll put in that category is that we do know that he filed for a restraining order in 2001. There are legal documents recording that. So at least we can say, look, maybe that boyfriend is exaggerating or all that kind of stuff, but that's one thing that is verifiable. That at least at one point in their relationship, I think it was back in 2001, he was concerned enough to make that legal filing. Well, maybe he's exaggerating, maybe she never said it, but that's one little bit where there's a permanent legal record we can go back and check on and use that to evaluate these claims. Again, I don't think one of the questions that we're going to have to grapple with here, both in the Kavanaugh case and I think going forward, is when someone comes to prominence, Supreme Court nominees, political candidates, cabinet appointments, really anybody who becomes something of a political celebrity, they're going to have interacted with all kinds of people in their lives. And probably there are lots of people who liked them, but chances are most of us go through life and end up, if not making an enemy, rubbing somebody the wrong way, somebody who doesn't like us. So the question is, how much credibility do we give those people who come forward and say, oh, this is a terrible person, they did X, Y, and Z? Depending on the seriousness of the claims, when somebody says, oh, this person was drank heavily in college. Well, that's not exactly unheard of on college campuses. And so the question would be, well, okay, how much did this affect people then? How much has this affected the people's lives, et cetera, et cetera? Allegation like sexual assault, you always have to take that seriously. But the question will then be, okay, how much can we verify about this claim? What we've now gotten to, Greg, is this sense where there's now a great incentive to come forward and say the worst possible things about people. And the question is, do we want to live in a society where people who you interacted with briefly at some past chapter of your life can come forward and ruin your reputation? Or, allegedly in this case, and some people who never met you come forward and make wild, crazy accusations. We're going to have a lot of questions after this, but I don't think it does us very good to suddenly glom onto any witness who's saying what we like to hear, any more than it does the Democrats any good to glom onto any witness who says what they want to hear.
Yeah, two quick exits here. First of all, I think they were both named Mora.
Moras, okay, yeah. That's a Mora.
Which was interesting. Secondly, be nice to your high school friends on social media and elsewhere, because you never know when you're going to need about 6 of them to vouch for you on a national stage, I guess.
No, Greg, 60 is not enough. I don't know if 60 would remember me.
Oh, Jim, we'll find out what happens tomorrow. Talk to you then.
See you then, Greg.
Jim Geraghty of National Review. I'm Greg Corombos of Radio America. Thanks for being with us today. Don't forget to visit our good friends over at ExpressVPN. That's expressvpn.com/martini. And tune in again Thursday for the next 3 Martini Lunch.